Roll call. It's alphabetical by last name. I'm just going to go backwards. Brian Wingbermuley.
Present.
Dana Sandweiss.
Present.
Tommy Pearson.
Here.
Scott Musgrave.
Present.
Jason Moore.
Present.
Sue Meredith.
Here.
Glenn Conan.
Present.
John Kelly.
Here.
Karen Cloyd. Matt Chellis.
Present.
John Bowman.
Present.
Adam Bone.
Present.
I thought I was going to time it right. Jennifer Bird. Becky Arps present. So do we, the approval of meeting minutes, there was an adjustment from the one that was initially sent out to clarify who actually, or what map that Adam actually presented, and he did actually present the Republican map.
Surprising, yeah.
I know, it is a surprise. Are there any questions or concerns about the meeting minutes as they were sent out or are in your packets?
I move we approve the minutes as currently presented.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Minutes accepted. Sure.
On discussion, the next piece is discussion of the maps. First of all, I want to thank all the people for sending in their comments and participating in that process, in this process, rather. And for the record, I would like to ask if Ms. Dana Sandweiss would say a few words. Commissioner Dana Sandweiss, I'm sorry.
Sure. Thank you. I did. Hello, fellow commissioners and members of the public. At last week's public hearing on November 8th, the Democrats provided a first draft map to the public for comment. In that map, we focused on keeping as many municipalities together as possible while maintaining 3 majority-minority districts. We received many public comments this past week. One common concern raised was that compared to the proposed Republican map, the proposed Democratic map significantly changed the current boundaries of the county districts. Another common public concern we heard was that dividing up municipalities into several districts dilutes the voices and representation of people in those communities who value their individual identities and government structures. We believe our original draft map was forward-thinking, based on demographic changes, growing diversity, and immigrant communities in the county, and would serve voters well. However, we also believe that a crucial part of the reapportionment process is to listen to and consider public concerns and work with our Republican counterparts to create a map that is fair and truly bipartisan. Accordingly, we Democrats have considered public suggestions, reviewed the proposed Republican map, taken into account the addition and shifts in population throughout the county, along with several other factors to create a second draft map, using current county district boundaries as a starting point. The additional factors we considered was minimal lease changes. We considered this factor important on several levels, including allowing voters to decide if they would like to keep or reject incumbents. Here, we took the current county council district map and moved toward equal population among the districts, considering contiguous and compactness. We also attempted to keep municipalities together as much as possible, understanding that St. Louis County presents special challenges with its 88 municipalities and 10 unincorporated areas. Equal population. 1 person, 1 vote. When considering this factor, we created new districts with as close to equal population while making the least change. Compactness means within the districts are packed as closely together as possible so that an ideal shape would be a circle or a square. When considering this factor, we understood that the natural boundaries of the county, like the Merrimack and Missouri River, would not allow us to create perfect circles or squares. So we created districts with as much equal population as reasonably compact considering these natural boundaries. Contiguity. Considering this factor, we tried to make all parts of each district within physical contact with other parts of the district, allowing to the extent possible one person to walk from one district to the next without crossing into a third, trying to make all parts of the district self-contained and compliance with the Voting Rights Act. When considering the VRA, we strive to protect minority voting rights. We specifically avoided packing and cracking. We avoided cracking by attempting to not split a minority group and dilute their representation into smaller minority percentages within several districts. We also avoided packing minority groups into one district, which would result in a minority having little or no influence on elections in surrounding districts. Our goal was to preserve an effective minority in as many districts as possible. Lastly, I also want to address a concern that was raised at our meeting regarding placement of current council members in our new map. Section 2.160 of the St. Louis County Charter provides any member of the council who moves the member's resident from the district in which the member was elected or appointed shall forfeit the office unless the member moves from the district in which the member was elected or appointed to a district bearing the same number and established by reapportionment. No member shall forfeit the member's office by reason of any change in the boundary line of the member's district made by a reapportionment. I want to be clear that it is our understanding that this section does not provide any guidance or restrictions on what this commission can or can't do when drawing our map. We believe that our map complies as reasonably possible with these factors, takes into consideration public comments, works with the Republican proposed map, and creates a fair St. Louis County district map for the next 10 years. We invite our Republican counterparts to consider our second draft and support the adjustments we have made toward a final bipartisan map. Thank you.
I was gonna say, now that you've done that statement, why don't you show your map?
Well, we were gonna ask you, since we were, ask you guys to show you.
I would challenge that since you've just done this big statement about the map, it seems kind of discordant to jump to a different map to come back. Since you have just done this big statement, if you wanted us to show the map first, I would have suggested that you hold your statement until we'd had the opportunity to show our map. But since you just told us about your map, why don't you show your map?
Well, I would just, real quick comment to Commissioner Dana, that all sounds wonderful. That sounds like what we did. So we shouldn't have any problems, right?
Right.
We're shooting for you.
So go ahead.
So I believe Courtney has our map, but as soon as we can get it up on the screens,
Good.
we can pass it over to Sue to give us a look at some of the changes we made this last weekend. Sue?
Well, while he's doing that, then I guess I will allow worked on this map as well.
This is not an easy map. I'm sure you all agree with that. We were trying, I've lived in St. Louis a very long time, and communities in St. Louis County were formed. Communities in St. Louis County were, the lights on. Anyway, do it again. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Communities in St. Louis were formed as the people gathered in groups and drew lines and called themselves towns. They grew over time because various cities annexed areas next to their city. That's why the cities have such peculiar shapes, because they were done not by a group of people who got together and said, let's take this area and divide it up. They were done by people who got together with their neighbors and decided to connect themselves together and then reach out and bring in this group and that group and the other group. That's why city lines are so, well, unique. And people did that because they were part of a group. So we thought about that and the history of the area. And so when we drew the lines, we tried to not break a community line, municipal line. There are some, because we haven't quite worked them all out yet. We try, and I think thoroughfares are very important. I agree with that. I think everybody else does too. But, your neighbors are important. And since that's the way the city started, we thought we should keep that in mind in drawing different lines than we started out with. And they're very different from what we started out with. And they're somewhat similar to the lines that the other map has. I don't know what the names of the maps are.
Better in first?
No worries at all. Commission, if you haven't, and for our audience, this is Courtney from the, yeah, you can introduce yourself
All right.
far better than I could.
Yep. Hi, I'm Courtney Corman, the County Data Officer. I just want to tell you guys, as you're speaking, you can feel free to ask me to turn on and off different data layers. I've just entitled the versions. I received a new map from each party today. I just called them Democrat and Republican proposed map version 2 for each one. Right now I'm displaying the Democratic version 2 map. I also have the original council district layers up there in black. The Democratic version is in navy. And if you'd like, I can add the municipal boundaries since we're kind of speaking to cities. But so just let me know what you would and wouldn't like displayed and if you'd like anything zoomed in on. And I think my battery should last most of this meeting.
Yeah.
So,
I would say go ahead and add the municipalities.
okay, sure.
Because, I mean, these people did this to themselves by choice in finding my glasses so I can see the map. Oh, look. Anyway, there are some that are split a little bit. We ran out of energy, I suppose, which is a poor excuse, but you can only do what you can do. We did bring Overland back together. We also brought in, let's see, it's moving. There were some other splits. I think we changed it. I'm looking at different parts of maps.
Oh,
and I'm-
okay, I can see
can't
back out
really
here,
see.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And there were things that we wanted to do to help out with population. Population isn't too bad, but some things you just can't move because it doesn't matter where the line is because no one lives there. And it kind of squishes things together because we were trying to allow all of the current county council members to have a district without somebody else being in it that's also a county council member. And so that was a real challenge because you want to keep things close together, as close together as you can. And the last district there on the southwest, it's kind of spread out, but so are the homes. But anyways, this is what we have to offer for now. We know that there's a little bit, Olivet is split a little bit, and so is University City. But I think most of the others are some teeny tiny ones that I think still need to be moved. And they're not very big at all. We're talking a very few hundred people. But that lets people be with people that they can get together and meet with and take their concerns to their county council member together, which we feel is really important to, have your neighbor where you can sit down and talk with them. But, well, sometimes they're in a different district and you're trying to talk to two county council members. And we like the idea of them being able to go to one. And for a county council member to know they're in this town and they're in their district. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd point out too, this is still a work in progress. Some of us are seeing precinct lines and district lines in our sleep now. One area in particular, though, which brought to our attention last night was the section of Florissant, which I hate to admit because I have many friends in Florissant. There is a section of Florissant south of I-270, and we received some written testimony from a woman in that area who feels left out because they are always separate from everything else because they're on the wrong side of a highway that came in after her home was built. And so that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. We're going to try to listen to all the public comments and wherever possible, make reasonable accommodation to what people ask us to do.
this woman's property is there by McClure High School.
Caboton Park.
It's just right, well, yeah, it's just a little tiny,
Right up.
that's it, right, exactly. And if we move that, there's another line a little bit to the east and I guess it's the middle district on the east side of the county that could come up just a hair at the corner, because it's really hard to find 100 people.
Mhm.
Yes, it is. So I think that pretty much covers the Democratic map, so now we. Your feedback.
Could we look at this map really briefly without the previous lines?
Yes, absolutely. Would you like me to remove the municipal boundaries as well, or? Okay. So,
Thank you. Some of the lines were close. And
Yeah.
I was trying
Oh,
to
yes,
figure out which way
absolutely.
they went. Awesome. Any other questions about the Democrat map?
What's the largest deviation you have?
Brian has the numbers.
It looks like our percentage is 0.37 and the deviation looks to be about 1,000, 1,200 people.
It's pretty tight. It's not exact, but it's
Yeah,
pretty tight.
Notice on a couple of points here, there are, and this is mostly with Dave's restricting out, there's a couple precincts in here that are unspoken for or inside of other, like at the bottom of the third, there's a couple unsigned precincts.
Yes.
Top of the seventh and the very bottom of the seventh and the sixth. Those are at least relatively minor. Otherwise, I think it is
Yeah.
contiguous this one.
Yeah, and I will just say that those are, of course, errors from transferring the files over and playing with Dave's. And I don't think there's any that are too up for grabs. You know, those clearly belong in 3 and that one clearly belongs in
Make sure
the
you-
West County seat.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you're green.
And I think all 4 of those are districts or blocks that have no one in them, if I'm not mistaken. They're like in the middle of rivers, so at least that's easy there.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Comments?
Okay. Adam, you want to walk into ours?
Sure.
You want me to start with just your layer only or any other layers?
Yeah, it's, oh, I'm sorry. If you want a physical copy, Jay printed out copies of our maps there. Yeah, I would say our current layer and our previous layer, I guess.
Like the previous county council districts or your first map? Sorry.
That one, yeah, our previous map. So
Your previous,
side by
okay,
side.
the version 1 map.
Yep.
Ooh, they're the same color. Sorry.
Oh, they are? Oh,
Yeah.
that's- well, then maybe not.
Yeah, sorry, I added them. I
Okay.
can change that after the meeting for you guys,
Can
but
we give them copies of the map?
So I guess just our current map.
Oh,
That
okay,
makes it easier.
sorry.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. So I ironically went in the opposite direction. I made it more like a little more like your map than ours. I still contend, and I think you guys are agreeing that the charter specifies compact contiguous, and I think the fact that from the appearance that I can see here overlaying my first draft and your second draft, they're almost identical. So I do appreciate taking a look at the compactness that I started with and then going from there. Ironically, I went backwards from that. In North County, and all of these changes that I've made, I don't like. I'm doing it just for the sheer purposes of municipalities less divided. I think stepping back towards what you've done, which is more in the direction of what I initially did, is probably a better step. But this is just my example of here's how we would take it if we were to keep municipalities together. In North County, I kept Riverview, Moline Acres together, combining it with the first. I had divided along Chambers Road. I also kept Berkeley together along the 2 and 1 border. Moved the sections of Florissant south of 270 into the 4th, keeping it along with all the other sections of Florissant. I think the only parts of Florissant that are not in the 4th are in that weird curly section on the left-hand side, but everything else is in Florissant. As we go south, I moved the section of the first that was tucked away on the left-hand side of the fifth in University City. And I moved it to the south in a place that I don't really care for, but it kept along the lines of University City the best, even though it's less compact. It's what it is. The second, moving to the far west, I moved Maryland Heights into the second in totality, which was a single precinct there. Moving for the boundary between the 7th and the 3rd, I maintained Valley Park all in the 3rd, moved spare precincts over to keep Valley Park unified. I kept Manchester unified, moved Winchester in totality into the 3rd. I moved Baldwin into the 7th to an extent that I'm not happy with, but we're trying to keep municipalities as an example of how you could draw them. And that's pretty much how, oh, and I'm sorry, the sections of Chesterfield that were in the 3rd, I removed those and gave those back to the 7th. Some of those were actually the same as they were in the original map that we currently stand with today, but I moved that further into Baldwin. Didn't change anything on the 6th. I was happy with Gravois and Tesson being its major borderlines there. I did move the boundary between the 5th and the 3rd. I no longer used Watson Road, whereas I used Big Bend instead. It allowed Big Bend to be the dividing line between Crestwood and Kirkwood, as well as allow me to move the totality between Kirkwood and Woodlawn and the northern border of Kirkwood all the way into the 5th. So I maintained that, keeping as much within one municipality as possible. That said, like I said initially, I don't like some of these changes. If the map that you guys presented is something that you guys are happy with, I would like to reverse some of the changes I made and go back to that. Otherwise, when I looked at, just briefly now, looking at the first version of my map and the second version of your map, I think there's a lot of consistencies, almost identical, especially in the south and the west. So those are good points to work with.
Questions and comments?
Hi, friends. I just want to say thank you, Adam. Like, I think this map is looking great. I love how this West County district has stuck with so many municipal boundaries, especially because when me and Sue were doing a deep dive into the map and trying to figure out how, I know how difficult that is when the houses are nice and spread apart.
No,
and-
they're not.
Yeah, and it's,
No, they're
you
not.
see precinct lines when you close your eyes. So I really appreciate the thought and the bipartisan spirit behind it. Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, the 3rd page is our breakdown of the population of each of the districts. I unfortunately had to bump mine up to a far too large of a 0.24% deviation, which, you know, oof. But it's still much better than 10%, so I'm good with that.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. First of all, and thank you, first of all, and secondly, I think we're getting really close. I'd like to hear from anybody who's here who wants to speak and see what our public information might be out there that we might want, that we can hear. I think we need to think about this a few minutes, and maybe we can get together, a couple of us, and work on a map together.
I would be really curious. Courtney, can you show V2 and R2 or V2 of both maps on the same?
That's that.
Yeah, I think we're super close on this.
We're getting there.
Especially if we move backwards from my second version.
So could you put up V2 of the DEM map and and V1 of the R map?
Yeah, even closer.
Wow. Look at that. Yeah, fancy that. Miracles could happen.
With the second.
Do we have anybody else that wanted to sign in for comments, to make comments on the maps? Oh, there's another person? Okay, awesome. So first on the list, we had Maureen Jordan. Yes, please.
I'll just retreat over here and feel free to direct layers as requested.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney. And thank you for all the help you've done on sucking in our maps into the tool.
Well, I have to say that after listening to last week, I thought, no, these two parties would never get together, and I'm really pleased with what I'm hearing today. What I wanted to support was that municipalities are kept together. They were formed back in the 1800s, before Missouri was even a state, and long before, and certainly before St. Louis County was formed. The people who live there voted to make their municipalities. They identify with their municipalities, and it is so foundational to who we are that when we meet somebody new, we St. Louisans ask, where did you go to high school? Very important for identity. The identities are important. They should be respected by keeping them intact. And I also agree with the comments about there are so many different state districts and Senate districts and so on, each with their own boundaries. And it's very confusing to someone who lives. In fact, you just have to look up and say, what am I in? Whereas you don't know where one begins and the other one ends. And so keeping these municipalities together as best you can is definitely a positive. I think also that frequently people are not heard by their electric, or don't think they are heard by their electronic, by their elected officials, geez. So I think it'd be really helpful for the municipalities to identify, know who's representing them so they can then bring their concerns to one person. So that's what I'm liking what I'm hearing. So keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Patrick Fox.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Fox, and I live at 1309 Purdue Avenue in University City. I've been attending Reapportionment Commission meetings since its first meeting in August, and at this point, I feel it's important to share some observations in order to ensure the process moves forward in a successful manner. This is not the first commission I've observed, as I did attend many of the Charter Commission meetings, and I worry that based on current trajectory of the past few meetings and the public comments therein, little to nothing will be accomplished without a course correction. It would be appreciated if commissioners could adhere to some simple and reasonable expectations in their meetings and processes in order to achieve their bipartisan goal of drawing new council boundaries. Based on observations thus far, I'd recommend the following 5 specific items receive their due attention. 1, adhere to not only the charter, but also your own rules. Last week, only one in-person speaker signed up and another spoke remotely. While you do have in your rules that people can speak remotely, your rules also state that the time is limited to 3 minutes. The in-person comments lasted over 9 minutes. Then you allowed a current council member to speak in person during a second public forum, even though they did not sign up as prescribed in the rules you set. If this body cannot follow the rules that you have the autonomy in setting, how is anyone expected to believe you can complete the reapportionment process correctly? I would ask the co-chairs to rectify this immediately. Number 2, use facts to make your decision. I'm delighted to see some progress in that today and more bipartisan support with one another. It will be helpful to see for both maps demographic information on the populations for all proposed districts in order to attempt some equity in the new boundaries. Number 3, speculation is not appropriate to achieve what the charter charges this commission with. It was very difficult to watch some commissioners allege that council districts were being proposed based on trying to draw boundaries unfavorable to a current incumbent council member who chose to move. There are no guarantees that if you move, your district will not change, nor there are any guarantees that if you do not move, your council district will remain the same. The charter is clear in its exception for current council members who may serve in their district if the boundaries are redrawn and they are not up for re-election. What the charter does not address, nor should it be considered when drawing boundaries, is where potential candidates who plan on filing live. That cannot and should not have an impact on your decisions. Number 4, arrive on time and ready to begin at the scheduled start time. I saw a problem with that today. While I recognize that can be technological difficulties that prevent the meeting from starting, arriving after the meeting time is an unnecessary distraction. You've taken an oath to be a commissioner, and the people of St. Louis County expect you to be able to participate in the process when called upon. And finally, treat others with respectfully and stay on topic. While it's clear to even the most casual observers that there are very distinctly different political philosophies, snide comments made about others' choices, particularly on whether they wear a mask, are uncalled for. Keep your discussions to the task at hand and in accordance with the posted agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
We have Mr. Dennis Lavala.
No, we'll just change it to paper.
Good evening, Dennis Lavely at Wildwood, Missouri. Was at the hearing last week, and I was impressed with the idea of the municipalities. I guess the concept I support is the communities of interest. It does seem to be best embodied by municipalities. It may not be exclusively so, but that will be, I guess, the key message I would have is that I think community of interests are important. Living in Wildwood, I relate to West County, and certainly my district here is going to continue to be all of those West County areas. But if in fact the city of Wildwood were divided, I would feel somewhat disenfranchised because I tend to feel that community of interest with the city that I live in. So that's my key message: is community of interest, probably best embodied by municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
So we do not have anybody that is online that I can see. Courtney, can you see anybody? Okay. So we kind of jumped ahead, but it's probably valuable with the maps. So one of the things that was brought up during the public hearing last week was was when is our end date for the reapportionment? And I had taken the to-do to contact the census. I discovered after a little while there is a redistricting data office. So for future reference, there's actually people we can go directly to. But they came back and they concurred with the April 26th date for the census being provided to the president. And then today we received information from the county counselor's office regarding the deadline of the Reapportionment Commission. And the county counselor also, the county counselor also concurs that our date is November 28th. Is there any other questions or comments regarding when our final vote is due?
Thank you for contacting the census.
We're all in agreement.
So as we had previously agreed, since the 28th is the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, that the 22nd, which is our next meeting, will be our final meeting and vote. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding that?
Hopefully. Will we get it done?
I'm feeling more and more optimistic based on our
I think so.
on our dates.
We gotta get it through.
I don't know that we'll go that far, but it certainly is we'll make history in St. Louis County.
Madam Chair, could you
Yes.
ask that the Census Bureau's redistricting office be mentioned in the minutes so the rest of us can find it if we need it? Did you already looked it up?
Yeah, it's an email address.
Okay, that'd be great.
So
That could just go in the minutes.
I can provide that email address.
You want to ask a
I'll
question?
make sure it's in the minutes.
Mr. Meredith has a question.
Yes, I do. Brian and I worked on the map. Adam and someone else, I guess, helped. You did it all yourself. You're a
We
glutton for
provided
punishment.
input as he went, but he was the one who manipulated the software, yes.
I was wondering if you might be, if everyone, Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to see who helped.
We all provided some input.
If
Yeah.
he did all the, he's the one with the dreams, right?
He's the one with the computer.
Right. Oh,
He's our version of Courtney.
Any more questions or statements? Commissioner Pearson.
First of all, I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far. One of the questions that has come to my attention is in regards to numbering, and I just wanted to make that clear to the public as it relates to making sure, apparently some of the maps that had gotten out previously had some different numbers to them that caused a little bit of consternation with some folks. So I just want to make sure that we are all in agreement that numbering, since most of where we are at this point, all of those numbers will be intact, especially as it relates to odds and evens. So I just wanted to make that statement to be sure we're all on the same page.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up because we did have a question about that from at one of our meetings recently. And I was wondering if we even have any control over the numbering of the districts. Do we?
Not within the app. That would
Well-
be does this body have the control to change whether District 1 remains District 1 or whether District 1 becomes, whether the odds stay the odds and the evens stay the evens?
The last I remember of a situation like that. I don't, unless there's a random.
Understanding was that we theoretically had the power to change the numbers to what we please within that like charter boundary, saying that we like can't end an incumbent's term midway through their term.
It doesn't say we can't. It says if they're moved into a different district, they can serve out their remaining term. So I don't see anything in the charter that doesn't say that that's not in our control.
And the reason that for those who are not aware, the reason that the question comes up is because the order of elections depends on odd and even numbers.
Correct. And I just want to make sure that we as a body, make sure we keep that into consideration as we present whatever our final conclusion will be. So, yeah.
I think that's something we should, I mean, I'll take it upon myself and if someone, to look into.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just say that the only thing it says is that no reapportionment shall shorten the term of any council member. So if we moved somebody from whose term was not going to end in November, then that,
They can fill out they can serve the remaining portion of their term.
right.
Correct.
So they'd end up with potentially or the person behind them may end up with a 1-year term as opposed to a 2-year term to simply meet that.
That's my understanding, yes.
It's certainly worth, Jay, is that something that we can go to the county counselor and ask their knowledge on that? I understand. The question at hand is, does this body have the ability to change the numbers of the council district, which would then change forthcoming elections? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman, was there something else you wanted to discuss before we discussed the maps? Do we want to have some conversation, since we are doing very well on time? Do we want to have some conversation on as a body on the remaining changes? It looks like the changes that would come would be between Council District 2, Council District 1, Council District 3, and Council District 5. It looks like we are in unison in Council District 6. We're in unison in Council District 7, and we're in unison in Council District 4. And that is comparing Republican map version 1 with Democrat map version 2. If we want to take probably the conversation between Council District 1 and Council District 2, the Democrat map looks like it. Can we put municipalities in?
So the red and the blue, which is which?
Yeah, I think the red's ours.
Okay.
And I don't know what municipality that is specifically.
Where?
If you look where the box is, so the Democrat map takes the first council district um, and brings the box into the second council district, and the Republican map keeps that line. But it takes the council district 1 and brings it down further. Is that bringing it down further? The, is that down to, I'm not sure.
Where are you talking?
So the bottom of council district 1
Of which
on the
one?
Republican map,
Okay,
it goes down to, is that going down to Delmar?
Delmar, correct. And they're at, I believe Forest Parkway, if I'm not mistaken.
It's south to Olive.
Olive, that's what it is, okay.
Okay. So you guys are going to Olive and we're going down to Delmar.
And then they meet up at Warson. Ashby.
And then
right?
you guys are going over to include, what are you including in the second district?
In the second district, we're including, it's pieces of Olivet, but those lines were moved to keep more of the city of Overland into the first district.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
may I suggest that we have a kind of a bipartisan working group to meet? I just know that when you move one number, it affects so many other numbers. So maybe I think doing it here, we don't realize when you change things, how it manipulates. So maybe we can meet together, a task force, just, maybe Brian and Adam. Just a suggestion, and a few others.
Yeah.
You okay with it?
I'm fine with that. I'm assuming, I don't know, and Sue kind of touched on this. I know she and Brian worked on this and it was me, so I don't know if anyone else would want to take part.
You.
Okay. And then at risk of opening up a Pandora's box of lines that we've already agreed upon, if there are any changes that I made between my two maps that you'd like to adopt, we can always adopt those as well. I think some of them I think are bad changes, but I think some of them are actually pretty good changes, so.
Okay. So do we have a motion for a bipartisan map drawing working group?
I propose that we have a bipartisan task force to work on the maps. I propose.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Now, where would you guys meet to do that?
You can do it online.
Online?
Yeah, we could do a Zoom.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable with a Zoom?
Yep, that's perfect.
And the nice thing about Dave's redistricting is that if you have multiple devices operating on the same map, one change on one map will affect all the other devices, not quite simultaneously, but almost real time.
Oh, so it's almost like Google Docs, like working together.
Kind of, yeah. So it might be like a 30-second delay, but there's at least relative real timeness with Dave's redistricting. I found that out the hard way with my laptop and my phone out and noticing that they're changing simultaneously, so.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
If you all agree
Okay.
with the Zoom, that works for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does make sense to do it that way because you all who are familiar with Dave's can, it's a lot easier to do it than it is to try to do it in real time with Courtney's
Yeah.
system
Oh, yeah.
right here.
We wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
Hey,
Yes.
So it could really be almost any time of the day.
So at this point in time, we've got, I know we've got Adam, me.
What's the first name?
No, all of a sudden I had a brain fart and I was calling you Dave, Mike, and I knew it was M, so it was Matt. And then we've got Brian and Sue. Anyone else we're coordinating with on that? I mean, we can coordinate those schedules and then send it out to the group. And if you're available and are interested, you can weigh in. Does that work? Okay. Is that anyone else from the side wants to jump on?
That sounds like a really good idea, guys.
Yes.
And is it, you said it was 4 people, I know me, Brian, Sue, and was it you or, I just thought you said Matt was on there too.
Yeah, we'll
I'll
both.
sit in on it.
Okay, I'm like, Brian, Sue, me,
We had
Becky.
3 on this side, 2 on that side.
That's fine.
Although Matt promises to be not very opinionated.
I never am.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Commissioner Bowman? Okay. Do you want us to schedule around you or? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second? All in favor? We'll see you next week. And if you want to, do you want to schedule afterward for by email?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
jump on an email and figure out a time when to meet.
Sounds good.
same bat time, same bat channel.
Next week, yes. Hopefully, same bat map.
I think our maps are coming together.
You can, I mean, you look at it and, I mean, our lines, that's it.
Well, there,
This is stuff that I gotta fix, so.
Kirkwood. Yeah, well, that snoopy line where there's a line like this. Or